This is, of course, a symptom of anartha. As we know that we fall into the material world. The process of nescience is described in the Bhagavad Gita, how from contemplation of sense objects we develop attachment. In other words, with the mind we think of material objects, and by that we develop attachment for them, and from the attachment develops lust, and from lust develops anger, because we're unable to fulfill those desires, that lust in the material world. No one is ever able to satisfy those material desires. Therefore, anger. And from anger, after we experience frustration in trying to satisfy our material desires, what happens next? Bewilderment of memory. It is a lesson. It's very purifying to be in Vrindavan, because we very quickly learn our shortcomings here. It's a very purifying place. We very quickly can realize how we are suffering from pratishta, which means fame and distinction. We have subtle desire. We want to be renowned preachers. That's our desire, to be well-known preachers. And so once the memory goes, of course, everything is finished. Bewilderment of memory, after that becomes loss of intelligence. Of course, when you lose your intelligence, then you're in the world, the material world, jugglery of names, where everything has no more significance than the bubbles on the ocean. Everything that is going on in the material world is no more significant than the bubbles on the ocean. It may seem that so many things are being decided, so many great conferences and discussions by diplomats and world associations, but from the rising of the sun to the setting of the sun, nothing is being accomplished in the material world. Simply death is coming nearer. So the first verse of the Shrisha Upanishad informs us that Krishna is controlling all the necessities that we have. Krishna is actually providing everything that we have. So we have to take whatever is allotted to us, knowing well to whom everything belongs, and therefore we should not accept things that are not meant for us, knowing well to whom they belong. So Krishna is the supplier, source of all ingredients, and we are allowed. He allows us necessities according to our quota, according to our karma. He allows us so many necessities of life. So understanding this, we know that poor people should not envy rich people, and rich people should not envy the poor people, because everybody, according to their karma, has a certain amount of necessities allotted to them. So to live on the edge of necessity is very labo jiveta yavata, is very kamasyanendriya pritiya. Life desire should never be directed towards sense gratification, but a life of healthy self-preservation. Labo jiveta yavata. Jivasya tattva jigyasa nato yasche akami bi, because life actually is meant for inquiring into the absolute truth, and nothing else should be the objective of our whatever we do, occupational duties. only in inquiry into the absolute truth. So an intelligent person understands that when we are born with certain debts. We have debts to the forefathers, we have debts to the saintly persons of the past, and we have debts to our parents, to our relatives, to all living entities actually. This is realized. Of course, the conditioned soul takes everything for granted, but has no appreciation for the Lord's mercy. Everything that's coming from the Lord's mercy, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the food that we eat, everything is coming by the Lord's mercy, but no one has any appreciation for these things. But an intelligent person knows that we are born with certain debts. We started a farm in California some years ago, and the only thing on the land we had was a well. It was a good well, but it had no pump in it. There was nothing on it, nothing on the land, no buildings or anything. So we put a pump in the well, at least we had water, and I started gardening, and I was living in a mobile home. And under those conditions, I was stepping from a mobile home into the dirt, and sometimes the mud, and there were snakes, there were rattlesnakes, and so many snakes in that area. And I really appreciated then, at this point, that we have debts. Like here we have a beautiful temple with paved courtyards all around. So in this way, a Brahmana, for instance, is born with three main debts. Debts to the saintly person, debts to father, and debts to the demigods. So he relinquishes those debts by children. The debt to the father is relinquished by performance of sacrifice. Yajna, debts to the demigods are relinquished, and by attaining knowledge, debts to the saint persons are acknowledged. But we arrive in this world naked, we have nothing, and we leave naked, nothing. But in between, we acquire so many things. We need shelter, we need so many things. So we are in debt to all these living entities for these things. So it's recommended that we don't become dependent on unconditioned souls, because of that dependence we will accrue so many debts to them which we cannot get rid of in many lifetimes. So it's actually a tragedy to become dependent upon any conditioned soul. But there is one way we can get free from these debts, and that's of course by taking to Krishna consciousness. When you take to Krishna consciousness, all the debts are relinquished. You have no more debts to parents, society, family, or the world, or anybody. Simply by pleasing Krishna, actually the world benefits by that. When we chant the Yajna for this age, we chant Hare Krishna, then the whole world becomes benefited. Prabhupada said that because of chanting Hare Krishna, there was a plague in Calcutta in 1997, I think it was, or 1897, there was a plague in Calcutta. And by the Brahmana organized a chanting party, and because of that, the plague subsided, Prabhupada said. So when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna bestows the blessings upon all the living entities. So our yajna for this age is chanting Hare Krishna, and our success in this means that we will be developing our pure love for God. In the beginning, chanting is done with offenses. Namaprad. So if we're chanting with offenses, then we will not achieve love of God. We will remain in the material nodes of nature. But the clearing stage is called namabas, when we're very careful to avoid offenses, and at that stage one can become free from sinful life and even become liberated. It was Gopal Chakravarti who offended Haridas Thakur on this point. Haridas Thakur explained this by Namabas, how we could become liberated, but Gopal Chakravarti didn't believe this. He didn't think it was possible, and because of his offensive attitude towards Haridas Thakur, he had to suffer leprosy. He lost his nose, and he lost his fingers, and he lost his toes, simply because he didn't appreciate that. So we should come to the offenseless or reducing the offenses stage, because then we will be able to experience some make some progress in spiritual life. Otherwise, while we're committing offenses, it will be difficult to make much progress. So in the pure stage of chanting Hare Krishna, in the beginning we must force ourselves to hear. The important thing of chanting is to hear the syllables, to hear them clearly, and not to imagine something in mind when we're chanting. But it's natural, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, that by Shravanam, Kirtanam, that Smaranam will develop, remembrance will develop. If we're absorbed in Krishna's leelas and pastimes, then naturally when we chant his holy names, we'll be thinking of those pastimes or qualities. That will be natural. But with the pure chanting, what will come will be that Krishna's name, form, leela, all those things will be pastimes, leela pastimes, will be revealed to us, and we'll be participating in those things. So we have a lot to look forward to. But right now in the material world you can see that very little jagya is going on, satisfaction. The demigods in the Kali Yuga, actually they anytime the demigods, they're not independent to bestow their benedictions. We're going to hear that in a few verses, that actually Krishna says those benedictions are actually awarded by me. So the demigods have no independent existence to award benedictions to anybody. Krishna is actually awarding those. But living entities who are taken away by material desires worship the demigods for certain benefit, and the demigods' pleasure is dependent upon these acts of sacrifice, and they in return provide all the necessities for life. But it's very important actually for us to live on the edge of necessity. Is a very good place to be in Krishna consciousness, where we don't accumulate any possessions, where less would be too much of an austerity for us to perform our devotional life, and more would be unnecessary. It's a very good place to simplify our lives and be able to realize how Krishna is helping us in our spiritual life. Just now I am having a catastrophe of memory, as you can tell. For some reason my memory is being shot, and it's a great source of anxiety for me. But whatever happens to us in Krishna consciousness, we can realize that somehow Krishna is giving us some mercy. We do not actually want to become illusioned again, to lose our knowledge. That would be a catastrophe. If we lose Krishna's mercy, if we lose our spiritual master's mercy, that will be a catastrophe for us in this life. So that's the last thing we want. So at least we can appeal to Krishna with more feeling and pray for his mercy, that we can get rid of our material desires, kamasya nendriya priti, that we don't want to develop any material desires. We can be honest that for many years we have been fooling ourselves and other people, maintaining material desires, hoping for petitioner or personal fame, which is of course a subtle form of gross material desires. So we have the chance in Vrindavan to finish up a life, hopefully, and purify all these things. I didn't initially expect to spend more than 2 months here, but now I've been 4 months, and I'm realizing that the demands upon me are very strong now. This lockdown has made it so that I am forced to become purified, and this is Krishna's mercy indeed. So I'm sorry, I apologize for any embarrassing moments, and hope for your blessings, and I hope also that I will have better appreciation for all the devotees that are able to live here permanently. Even the Brijbasis are devotees, they're Vaishnavas. They may not be following all the rules and regulations, but they do chant Hare Krishna, and their lives are auspicious. Even if whoever you meet in the street, you say Hare Krishna or Jai Radha, and they will respond. So this is a very good place to become purified. And of course, to concentrate and purify our chanting of Hare Krishna is very important. To give up the material desires, to come to the conclusion that we cannot be cheated anymore. It is not possible. We just have to be honest. Hare Krishna. Does anybody have any questions, please? Yes, Brahma. Who is indebted?
Yeah, the soul or the body who is indebted to the demigods.
The body. The body is indebted to the demigods because for our existence we need those necessities. The soul doesn't need air and water, does it? The body needs air and water, food.
So the body needs everything, so body is indebted with the demigods and all this.
The demigods, they supply those necessities to keep the body, to maintain the body.
They supply the necessity through the Lord. The Lord has given them a service that will do this service. The Lord has given the sun that will be sun given in the
Yes, they're delegated.
Their service is given by the Lord.
Yes.
So they are obeying the order of the Lord and giving this one.
They are, but they're devotees, but they're sakama devotees. They have material desires also.
They have between this, but they are following the order of their spiritual master, their guru. Krishna is their guru, he is the father.
Yes.
They are following the order of his father.
Yes.
So when they are following the order of father, then how we are in touch with them? Why not we are to his father?
Oh yes. Well, that's the point of devotional service. Yes. That we're not indebted to the demigods if we please Krishna, because he's the root. the root of the tree, we don't have to satisfy the demigods. Yes, it's a good point to bring out. We're not indebted to the demigods.
So if you pray to Krishna, so
That's why our debts are obliterated when we surrender to Krishna.
ultimately our goal should be surrender to Krishna, or we should think about these demigods.
No, we respect them, that's all.
We respect them.
Yes.
We respect them.
You must
We are
respect
in
them.
service of Krishna.
Yes. Demigods are sometimes described in different parts of the Lord's body.
Body or the soul.
The embodied soul is indebted, has so many debts.
Soul is dead, the body is dead. Who is the dead?
What is
We're indebted to the parents, for instance, for giving us birth.
not the soul?
Huh?
Not the soul.
His parents are giving birth to the body. The body is in death of their parents. Not
I
the
am
soul.
sitting in this body, right? This body belongs to me.
Who is giving in the body?
So this body is indebted to my father, parent, not to me. Not to me. How is it?
Because this body is given to you by Lord Krishna. The soul is entered in your parents' body. The soul is entered in the body. The body is developed within the...
Body is a bare matter. How it can be indebted to anything?
Yeah, it cannot be...
The person is inside, who is mind this body by the time.
Ah,
He
the-
is responsible.
Yes. Well, this is the illusion, that under illusion, body illusion, the soul gives power of attorney to the mind.
I'm not at all agree with this thing, that the body is only indebted to the parents. Or the demigods.
Hmm?
Whatever you are doing or the soul is doing. The body is doing or the soul is doing.
Because I'm sitting on the person who is working.
The soul is doing
All
nothing.
is doing.
Soul is doing nothing. Krishna says in the Gita that...
Either body is punished or the soul is
hang on a minute. Krishna says in the Gita that the material nature is the cause and effect of everything that's going on, but the soul is the cause of our happiness and distress, because of our use of our free will. We can choose, therefore we're the cause of our happiness and distress. But everything that's going on in our embodied lives, we are not the doers. We are not the doers. This is all being carried on by the material nature according to our desires. This is a fundamental understanding. Prakrite kriyamani gunai kamani savasha ahankara vimudama kartahamiti manyate. The living entity under illusion thinks himself the doer of activities actually carried on by material nature.
Until and unless I am that with this body.
Hmm?
Until and unless I am in this body. I am sitting in this body. Right? I am apart from this body. But now I am sitting in this body.
Yes.
And then we see that Prakriti Kriya Karma, Prakriti is doing. That I also listen. Because I am a certain nature, so certain types of activity like that. Like that too. When I will come out of this modes of material nature, then I will not relate myself to the body, and then I
No.
will completely Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
Which is what sannyasi, that is in technical language. They are called sannyasi, they don't have to do like, they are not the son of this body, they live everything, home and family, everything.
Yeah, a devotee sannyasi.
But it's not that body is with me, so I am not doing anything. Nature is doing.
Yes, nature is doing it.
It's not that I am doing and the nature is doing it. I am in the body, that's why this body you do it and you do it. Whatever action I am doing with this body, I am responsible for that, not the nature.
No, we're not the doers.
We are not the doer.
No.
But I am responsible for it. Because I am doing it with God. So what that This separation of body and myself is different thing completely. We cannot say, oh, I'm not responsible for parents because I'm not body. Yes, we are responsible until we are in this body. But once you become fully Krishna conscious, when you completely dedicate your life, then you are not at all responsible. Then Krishna will take care of your life. But one cannot become irresponsible by saying...
Yes, Krishna makes us responsible. When he embodies us, he makes us responsible.
Only body is responsible, not mind. Until I'm in this body, I'm responsible for this body.
No, you're responsible. The soul is responsible for misuse of free will.
I will soul, not I some body. I'm responsible for body.
What the activities you are doing through your body or through your mind or through your soul?
Because I'm sitting, that's why this body is working. As soon as I will finish. So until I realize I am the body, I am responsible for my all actions.
So whatever good and bad you are doing, you are responsible.
Yes.
So who is guiding you to do those things?
Yeah.
Who is guiding you to do those things?
This is because I am connected to this body. That's why fully Krishna conscious activity. That's why we have to do yajna. Our all action has to be yajna. Yajna means for Krishna's pleasure. Whatever activities we do for the pleasure of Krishna, that is yajna. In the topmost yajna chant Hare Krishna. If somebody on that platform like Haridas Thakur, there is no need of doing anything to him. But we actually have not. There have to be so many good distribution, this, that, worship, giving prasadam.
That's on
Then
Krishna.
Raghunath also Swami was taking it.
So that's all for pleasure for Krishna. Whatever you are doing, that is pleasure for Krishna.
Yeah,
You are not doing for yourself.
Yeah, but that has to be done. That's the honesty of the there. That's what we just said. Honest, one has to be honest. What I'm doing for pleasure of Krishna.
Yes.
Giving prasadam.
We have to purify our desires. Then we won't be. Then we'll be free from reaction.
When we do yajna, then we in the first attempt, I just said very nicely, honesty. That's what
It's very important. I mean, it's this thing we accept in theory, but we don't really practice. If we could practice it, I'm only having to practice it now because Krishna's forcing me. I can say that. Yes. And I can share that with you because it becomes an item of knowledge, understanding, that yayatam, what is it? As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone's following my path in all respects. Yes.
So to bring up you asked the question, is the soul obliged to always things?
Yes.
Sort of body? And I tried to answer, not disagreeing with it.
No.
But I just want to bring something to the table for consideration. The soul is dependent on the body to go back home to God. And under almost all circumstances. It's like a boat. So in this sense, one can possibly consider that in this sense, soul is dependent, since he's dependent on this boat to come across. Maybe there is some...
Well, the boat is a very good vehicle for crossing the ocean of nescience. Yeah, only in the human form can we understand the complete whole. So therefore, the human form is a good boat for crossing over the ocean of nescience. So the mind can either deliver us or put us into bondage. The mind has to be purified.
Just to get that boat and all the
No, the debt comes from being able to live in the material world. We're indebted. I say we come with nothing, but to survive we need certain things. We're not providing all those things. We're not building everything. Whereas the knowledge is coming from saints of the past. We're not getting that knowledge on our own without the help. We needed our parents, otherwise we wouldn't be born. Of course, the soul has to be put there also by Krishna's arrangement, but the parents, we have to be grateful to the parents because they took care of us when we were helpless. That debt is there. That's why in the Vedic culture it's very important children to obey their parents. It's abominable to disobey your parents in the Vedic culture, because that thankfulness is there, which is quite opposite to the situation we have nowadays. Young people don't respect anything, anybody, least of all their parents. Hare Krishna. Jai, all glory Srila Prabhupada. I knew this was going to be a disaster, this class.